Welcome to my channel. Today, we are going to explore a very interesting topic. We are going traveling back in time to colonial America. Life back then was very different, and people had to follow some extremely strange rules. In this six-part series, you will hear amazing stories about these crazy laws. Listen carefully to upgrade your English vocabulary and speaking skills today. Do not forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more fun stories. A long time ago, in early America, Sunday was not a day for fun. It was the day for church, and the rules were very strict. Everyone in the town had to go to the church building. If you stayed at home, you were in big trouble. Some men had a special job to walk around the town. They looked into windows and checked every garden. They wanted to find people who were sleeping or working. If they found you at home, they did not just talk to you. They could take your money or put you in a public wooden cage. Inside the church, the service was very, very long. People had to sit on hard wooden chairs for many hours. It was often freezing cold in the winter or burning hot in the summer. What happened if someone fell asleep during the long talk? A church worker carried a long wooden stick. One end of the stick had a hard ball, and the other end had soft feathers. If a man fell asleep, the worker hit his head with the hard ball. If a woman fell asleep, the worker tickled her nose with the soft feathers. You had to stay awake and listen to every single word. Even children had to sit completely still without making any noise. You could not laugh, you could not play, and you could not run. Sunday was a day of silence and serious prayer. If a child made a small noise, the parents had to pay a fine. Imagine living in a world where sleeping in church was a crime. This rule sounds crazy today, but to the Puritans it was the only way to live. Now, let us prepare for the next strange rule about fashion. Today, we can wear any clothes we like and any colors we want. But in colonial America, your clothes showed your social level. There were laws that decided what you could put on your body. These laws were called sumptuary laws. If you were poor, you had to wear simple, dark clothes. Only rich people could wear bright colors like blue, red, or gold. If a poor person wore a bright red dress, the police would stop them. Think about that. Wearing a color could make you a criminal. It was not just about colors, materials were also important. Rich people could buy expensive silk, lace, and silver buttons. Poor people could only wear cheap wool or rough cotton. Why did the government make these strange rules? They wanted everyone to know their place in society immediately. When you walked down the street, you knew who was rich and who was poor just by looking at their coat. If a poor woman wore a silk scarf, she had to go to court. The judge would ask her to prove she had enough money to buy it. If she could not prove it, she had to pay a big fine or give the scarf away. Even ribbons in your hair were checked by the town leaders. Men were also punished if they wore boots that were too fancy for their job. Imagine getting arrested because your shoes looked too expensive. People had to be very careful when they got dressed every morning. Your clothes were not a personal choice. They were a social statement regulated by law. What other daily things did the government control? Let us find out in the next part. Love and marriage also had very strict rules in early America. You could not just show your love anywhere you wanted. Showing affection in public was completely against the law. Yes, even kissing your own husband or wife in public was a crime. There is a famous story about a ship captain named Captain Kemble. He was away at sea for 3 long years on a big ship. When his ship finally came back to the town of Boston, his wife was waiting for him. He was so happy to see her that he hugged her and kissed her on the street. But guess what happened next? The town leaders saw this public kiss and they were very angry. They did not care that he was away for 3 years. They arrested Captain Kemble immediately for bad behavior. His punishment was to sit in the wooden stocks for 2 hours. The wooden stocks were in the center of the town where everyone could see him and laugh. This law was made to keep the streets clean and moral. People had to keep their feelings hidden inside their homes. Even holding hands in public could get you a warning from the town watchman. Young lovers had a very hard time talking to each other. They used a long, hollow wooden tube called a courting stick to talk. They would sit on opposite sides of a room and whisper through the tube. This way, the parents could watch them and make sure they did not touch. It was a very quiet and distant way to fall in love. These rules make us realize how much freedom we have today. In small colonial towns, everyone knew everyone else's business. But talking too much or sharing secrets could lead to a painful punishment. There were laws against gossiping and arguing. If a person talked bad about their neighbors, they were called a common scold. This rule was mostly used against women who complained or argued in public. The town did not want angry voices disrupting the peace. If a woman was caught gossiping, she faced the ducking stool. What was a ducking stool? It was a wooden chair tied to the end of a long wooden pole near a river. The woman was tied securely to the chair. Then the town leaders pushed the pole over the water. They lowered her into the cold river water again and again. The whole town gathered around the river to watch and laugh. It was a cold, wet, and highly embarrassing punishment. Another punishment for talking too much was the brank. The brank was a heavy iron mask placed over the person's head. Inside the mask, there was a flat piece of metal that went into the mouth. If the person tried to speak, the metal hurt their tongue. They had to walk around the town wearing this heavy mask in silence. This stopped people from spreading rumors or saying bad words. Men could also be punished for lying or using bad language. They were often forced to stand in public with a large paper sign on their chest. The sign explained their crime to everyone who walked past. Speaking your mind back then was a very dangerous thing to do. Let us talk about hair, because even hair had its own laws. If you look at old pictures of colonial men, you will see big white wigs. But these wigs were not just for fashion, they were regulated by the government. Wigs were very expensive and required a lot of care. Only rich men, judges, and government officials could wear large wigs. The size of your wig showed how important and rich you were in the town. If a poor man tried to wear a big wig, he would be fined. Young men also had rules about how they grew their natural hair. In many colleges, students were not allowed to have long hair. The teachers believed that long hair was a sign of a lazy and rebellious mind. They had to keep their hair short and neat at all times. For women, their hair had to be covered with a white cap in public. Showing your hair was seen as untidy and improper. Only young, unmarried girls could leave their hair uncovered. Once a woman was married, her hair was hidden under a fabric cap. Even the powder used to make wigs look white was expensive and taxed. This powder was made from ground starch and had nice scents. If you wanted a white wig, you had to pay a special tax to the king. So poor people had to wear their natural dark hair with simple cuts. This made it very easy to see who had power and who did not. Your head was a direct map of your bank account. Next, we will look at our final crazy rule about traveling. In our final part, we will look at how people moved around. Traveling was not easy, and it was not always legal. You could not just pack your bags and go to another town. If you wanted to travel, you needed permission from the town leaders. They wanted to know why you were leaving and where you were going. If you did not have a good reason, they could force you to stay. Strangers entering a new town were watched very closely by the watchman. If a stranger did not have money or a job, they were kicked out immediately. The town did not want to spend money feeding poor outsiders. There were also strict rules about being outside at night. Every night, a loud bell would ring to tell everyone to go home. This bell was called the curfew bell. After the bell rang, you had to put out your fires and candles. If you were caught walking on the street at night, you were stopped. The night watchman carried a lantern and asked for your name. If you did not have a good excuse, you spent the night in jail. These rules were made to prevent fires and crimes in the dark. Today, we can walk, travel, and stay up late whenever we want. Learning about these colonial laws shows us how much our world has changed. They had rules for clothes, church, kissing, talking, hair, and traveling. Thank you for listening to this story series. I hope you enjoyed learning English with me today. See you next time.